So this morning we're going to head to Cecil's Mango Grove. It's not very far from here, and it has a lot of history attached to it also. So let's get going. This is where the old Zill Grove used to be. This is where the Zill family grew up. This is all mango trees and nursery here, and all the way to the railroad tracks over here to Federal Highway this way. And so 1985, December of 1985, they sold this, and then later on it became a huge amount of apartments here. But this is close to truly tropical, and right now we're going to drive to Cecil's place. So we just arrived at Cecil's place, having actually we just drove past the Zill's, the old site for the Zill nursery, which I think is about 6 miles from here. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I was just telling my daughter actually that that piece of property went from Federal Highway to the railroad tracks, and Walter lives on the other side of the railroad tracks on the little bit of it that was left. But I understand it was December of 1985 that they moved the nursery, or they sold the nursery. Right. And then Lawrence Zill and his wife bought this house on High Palexo, right. And they actually moved a lot of the trees here. What year was it that you bought it?
I bought the property in 2002. And it had been vacant actually for almost 3 years, so it was just an old abandoned house, and it was in terrible shape. And everything was overgrown, the trees were out of control, vegetation everywhere, so it was very much in disrepair.
So it was an experience just yes, being able to move in here.
Right. It took a lot of work to get the house prepared just to move in. And everybody that came in would walk in and look around and just go, oh, you got a job on your hands.
Yeah, you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
So you bought this property in 2002. What made you take the big step there? That's because you were not in the growing mango business before that.
Not at all. I had owned a mango tree, planted my first mango tree in Wellington in 1987. It was a kit. Before that, the only mango I'd ever had was a Tommy Atkins, and of course I wasn't very impressed with mangoes in general. Had a young lady that worked for me came in one day and said, oh, these are the best mangoes in the world, and she had some kits, and I tried that and I thought, wow, this is so much better than what I'd had before. And she was from Jacksonville. She didn't know anything about mangoes, but the Tommy Atkins and the kit, of course, the kit was much better.
Yeah, kit wins.
So I just thought, oh, this is great, So when I bought a place in Wellington, my first house in Wellington, within a couple of months I bought a kit tree, planted that, and that got me started. When I bought my next place in Wellington, same thing, I got a kit right away. And then I bought this property, and I knew I liked mangoes, but I didn't know that much about them. And then all of a sudden I get exposed to all these different mangoes, and of course I was a little bit bonded to the kit, which happens with people. You know, you eat something for 8-10 years, and in your mind you think it's the best mango in the world. So
you never can forget your first love.
Right. So it takes a little while to kind of get over the fact that, you know, you're bonded. You just have had this affinity with this mango. So I got this place, and all of a sudden there's all these different mangoes. And again, you know, I didn't know that much, but I started trying different mangoes and seeing there was a lot of different things out there. And the place, when I originally bought it, I fixed it up, and it was a rental place for several years, so I didn't live here. And I did start cleaning up the property on the original area here behind the house. The trees were planted way too close together, and so I thinned a lot of stuff out. They had some mangoes that I didn't think were that good even at that stage. They had a Springfield. I got that out. They had a one called a well, they had a very high top worked Hayden. It was top worked about 12 feet, so the tree was just very, very tall. Couldn't do anything about it. It was too close, and so I took that out. And several other trees. I took about 5 trees out behind the house because they were just jammed together and they were all going straight up. So that's where I started, and then I just, the very first year I went, excuse me, I went in and had the trees trimmed back because they had never been trimmed. It was the old school mango growing style. You just plant them and let them grow. And so I started trimming the trees and bringing them down and trying to get them to where they were more manageable. And so that was the beginning, and then within a couple years I started planting some new varieties, and I planted, the first ones I planted was a Fairchild, I planted a Cogsall, I planted a Rosy Gold, and that's the first 3 trees I planted, I guess initially, and then I kept expanding beyond that. And
so when you originally bought the property, did you buy it because it was a sort of at a nice location, and it was you know, you didn't have immediate plans to move here, but you thought it was an interesting place, and then you didn't, you know, possibly think you were going to get into mangoes as heavily as you ended up getting into?
I didn't really think I was. I mean, I thought, well, I like mangoes. They got a lot of mango trees there. I'll start, you know, and I didn't know that much about the different varieties, so I just, you know, had the property, started eating different varieties and going, wow, this is good, and that's good, and I started forming my opinions. And so I really didn't plan at that stage of kind of getting into the mango business. And then when I moved over here, which was about 10 years ago, then I started adding more varieties. And then I got to a point where I felt like, well, the property was full, because planting it with the traditional spacing, I just didn't have that much space. And so I kind of got to a point, well, I can't do anything else. I've got it full. And so this is kind of where I'm at. And then I started reading about different planting techniques, ultra high density, and I started looking around and going, well, I can put something in here, put something in there, put something in there. So about 3 years ago, I started adding a lot of new varieties. And I'm not sure how it's going to work out yet, because some of these trees are much more vigorous than others. And the studies I read, they were using dwarfing rootstock in India and South Africa, and of course we don't have that available here, not like they do. And I talked to USDA, and it looks like there's no way to get that imported. There's a lot of barriers and things like that. So I thought, well, I'll just start with different varieties. I'll trim them the way they tell you to trim them, and over time I'll see what you can manage and what you can't manage. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
So one thing while we're standing here, I wanted to get you to tell everybody about your selling mangoes during mango season, because that all happens in the carport.
Right, exactly.
And so how, if I wanted to come to your place for mangoes during mango season, what would I do?
Okay, well, the name of the company is Tropical Paradise Grove. Our phone number is 561-602-8000. And I'm open during the week, normal, well, I have set hours, and then I'm open on Saturday. I haven't been open on Sunday. But what I'll do is, depending on my mango crop, I'll set the hours. If I have a big crop, the hours will be a little longer, because you need to move the product and not let it go bad. If the crop is smaller, then the hours may be shorter. Last year I was open Monday through Friday, and I was open from 3 to 6, and then on Saturday from 12 to 4. This year I'm not sure exactly how it's going to go, because the season looks like it's going to be a stretched out season. I'm not going to have a lot of mangoes to start with, but I think I'll have mangoes over a longer period of time. So the hours will probably be that, but if I see I'm running too low, I don't like to claim to be open if I don't have a good supply of mangoes. What I don't want people to do is drive from 20, 25 miles away
and
show
find
up,
an empty carport.
show up and see there's 4 or 5 mangoes, because people get that very sad look on their face when there's no mangoes to choose from, and it makes me sad to see them that sad. So I try to have at least 100 pounds of mangoes a day to open with. If I don't do that, what I'll do is I'll work on appointments. But once I get into the season, I hold back on the season until I think I'm going to be at that point. And once I get in, I like to keep the hours. If the crop goes down a little bit like it may this year, because we have this split season, might have some periods that are light. If it gets too bad, I would send a voice announcement out to my customers and say, well, we're going to modify the hours and go from Monday through Friday, we'll go to Monday, Wednesday, Friday, something like that. Because again, I don't like people to drive and get here and there's no selection.
So basically, you can call the number that you mentioned and get the hours, and you can also, if I wanted to be on the customer list, I could give you my telephone number, and then you would make announcements by group phone message.
Right, exactly. I have a voice broadcast system, and so what I'll do, I send an announcement out to all my customer base and say the season has started. Here's the hours. If something changes, for example, I went to the Mango Growers Conference a few years ago, several years in a row actually, and so I was closed on that day, so I sent an announcement out to tell people I'd be closed on that day. So that's the way I've been communicating at this point. I do want to get to a website and email and all that, so I can just send out an email blast, but that's where I'm at today.